welcome to the studio. Thanks for sticking around for this live demo this morning in the UK. 11:15 ish here in the UK, and of course it's just been the 2-minute silence here at 11 AM for Remembrance Day. So I thought we'd do something special for this, and I want to paint a poppy picture in watercolours against a nice sort of dry stone wall. So this is live, broadcasting live here. So if you're watching this back at a later stage, originally this was broadcast live. I've got it sketched in. I want to talk about materials and a few other bits and bobs, but I just want to show you the sketch very quickly. So there you go, you can see the sketch. I've sketched in 3 poppies, as well as some of the sort of seed heads, as it were. And so you can see the sketch there. It's all sketched in, and basically we're going to build this picture up from scratch. We're going to paint the poppies against a nice old stone wall, and that should make it quite interesting. So very much a background incidental wall, and that'll really work nice in the picture, giving us a nice atmosphere. And you can see I've not sketched in any of the wall. It's basically just the poppies, and I've just sketched in the 3 with the sort of seed heads in and the buds as well. So as far as materials are concerned for this one then, using my kind of standard palette of colours, which you've probably seen me use before quite a few times on and off. First of all, brushes. I've got kind of 3 staple brushes that I use all the time, and this is a large, medium and small. So we've got a large 20, a medium 10 and a small 6. So I want to use those brushes, as well as a few other brushes that we might bring into the equation. For example, here I've got Matthew Palmer lift out brushes, extra large and large. Beautiful for creating gorgeous highlights, a special bristle that really works a treat. Beautiful branching detail brush as well, which is a rigger brush that's surrounded by a nice natural hair, so that's going to come in as well. Okay, all the materials are available on watercolour.tv, so you can see the website in the top right of your screen. So if you head on over to there, folks, anything that you fancy, that you like, you can pick them all up. We've got various brushes, but those are the kind of staple ones that I think I'm going to be using. Plenty of water here as well, plenty of kitchen paper is always good. Let's just briefly touch on colours. Now, I will be using pretty much my own range of colours. I've got a range of colours called Matthew Palmer Natural Collection. There's 14 colours in the range, all designed for one simple reason: to replicate nature. That's what they're there for, replicating nature. So we've got the likes of the greens, the natural greens, which are lovely, perfect spot on foliage greens, and we shall be using those in this picture. We've got natural grey, which is the perfect shadow colour. There's 14 altogether. Again, if you check out watercolour.tv, click on the art shop section, you'll see all the natural colours with a description of each one as well. But because we're talking about poppies, we've got something a bit brighter to bring into the equation, so we need some kind of a brighter colour. So we do have some cadmium red as well, which I've popped in the palette there. So cadmium red will also feature. The darker red is going to be natural red, which is my own red. Okay, again, part of that natural range of colours. You can see I've popped them in my palette here. I've got some scrap paper for testing colours. Just over here, you can probably just about see this, we also have some cling film as well. Now, cling film, or plastic wrap, kitchen wrap, food wrap, whatever you call it in your part of the world, is going to be used in this demo for creating a beautiful sort of texture to the background. Okay, and I'll show you how to use that. So we'll pretty much get started really. I'm all sketched in. You can see I've stuck it to a board as well. Size wise, it's a fairly decent sized piece of paper. This is about A3. It is Matthew Palmer watercolour paper, which is available to buy in blocks of 15. It's a cotton paper made in France. It's got a beautiful knot surface, and knot surface means it's not rough and it's not smooth, so it's a beautiful textured surface. And all the paintings that I do, all the ones you can see around the back here, are all on that paper. Beautiful surface to work on. Cotton makes such a big difference, it really does. So sketched in, stuck to a board, working on an easel, which is not always an essential thing. Just on a desk was absolutely fine, but I'm going to get stuck into this now. So you can see it's on the paper there, and we're going to go for it. We're going to go for it, folks. So I'm going to start off by wetting the entire sheet of paper, throwing in some random colours. We'll talk about the colours as we progress through the demo. That's the best way to work, in my opinion, on something like this. So let's have a quick glance at the palette here. The biggest brush, which is the 20, nice and clean. And I prep a few colours. And natural grey is going to feature for the background. A nice pale background, an old stone wall. We've also got skin tones here, light skin tone and dark skin tone as well. I want to use that darker skin tone because it's a lovely colour. It's got a slight rusty sort of glaze to it, and it's a lovely colour for stone walls. We've got a colour here called natural yellow as well, which is very much a sandstone colour. So those three colours will give me a lovely background. Just want to make it clear that this is the watercolour demo, so I'll be painting pretty quickly in my own speed. If you want to do something a bit more relaxed and paint along, like lots of you have been doing over the months, head on over to Watercolour TV and check out the live watercolour workshops. They are a beautiful thing, folks. Working in a nice steady pace. There's a link in the description of the virtual workshops. Click it and you'll see which one is coming up next. Okay, so that's with the big brush. Now I'm also going to grab a size 10 brush, and I want to mix up some greens here. So I'm going to use a mixture of the two greens. Now if you've not got these colours, you can use your off-the-shelf colours. Mix your green from yellow and blues, rather than actually using hooker's green or anything like that, because to me those colours are a little bit too false. Natural greens are mixed like you would mix them yourself. So we have some green. We're also going to grab, with the size 6 brush, some red, which we're going to pop just here. There we go, I've got some red. So that's just cadmium red on its own, straight through. Let's get the water on. So you can see it's all sketched in nicely there. I'm going to wet the entire sheet of paper. The entire sheet of paper is going to go in nicely tilted. So a nice coverage here. Just literally putting water on, nothing fancy about this. A complete coverage of water. Straight over the flowers, everything goes in. Don't worry about anything like that, just a nice coverage. Plenty of water, 3 or 4 coats sometimes, depends on what paper. If it's a cotton paper, certainly can go 3 if not 4 coats of water. Depends on the room temperature that you're painting in. You know, if it's going to dry, if it's a warm room, then middle of the summer kind of thing, then you want to be getting a bit more water on than if it was a damp wintry conservatory or something like that. So plenty of water. That's looking good to me. Now watercolour paper starts to swell and cockle when it's wet. This is pre-stretched paper. I do not stretch watercolour paper. Life's too short for that. Like cutting the grass, you know. I'm not, it's there, but I don't bother, you know. Personally, it's not something I want to do. First colour is going to be that yellow, which is the sandy colour, and it's literally just flat to the paper and twist. Okay, twist it around, loosely working in between the flowers. Okay, for this outer focus, we're talking a vignette, a soft faded edge. That's beautiful natural yellow. We don't want to go for the whole thing in that colour, just patchy, straight into that grey then, because the grey is going to be a good colour for this background here. So we'll get the grey in there, working in between around the edges. Those colours beautifully mixed together really do look nice when you get them working. Let's get a bit closer in for you. Remember, we are doing this live, so the camera work is going to be unedited. Then the skin tone. The skin tone is going to go in as well. Love the skin tone, one of my favourite colours. This one's dark, there's a light as well. And it's almost like a dark terracotta, I suppose you could say. It really works nice on these soft faded vignette paintings. A bit more of that skin tone just creeping in. This is the big brush, the 20 I'm using here, by the way, in case you've not worked that one out. You can see I'm very loosely working around the flowers, but it doesn't matter if it goes over the top of them. Really, honestly, it doesn't matter at all. Not a problem here. Let your paint spread, let it bleed in paint, absolutely fine. Let's get closer in here, beautiful. Now I want to pick up the size 6 brush actually, and pick up that green, the green colour what I mixed, with a bit of a tap on the tissue though first, because I want to bring in some very, very out of focus grasses, extra poppy stems, that kind of thing, even a loose impression of some of the poppy leaf here. But I want to do all this while the paper is actually damp, because to me it's a much nicer way of actually working. Okay, smashing. So again, it's just a nice mixture of greens here, and I'm just going to pop in some little bits, so almost like a little explosion of colour around the base there. Just helps. And even picking up some of the red, but very dry on the tissue, and a little bit of a splatter. Being careful, just a little bit of a red glaze around it, just sort of almost kind of pebble dashing the paint, if you like. That's just a bit of the red there, just a little touch of it. It just kind of gives a nice atmosphere. Then we'll grab the kitchen foil, the cling film, and we'll wrinkle it up, and we'll lay it flat against that nice pale background. Now what happens with this is you leave it a couple of minutes and then you dry it off. Now that's very much like looking at paint dry now, but it's part of the background, folks, and it is basically going to give us a texture. It's going to give us a lovely sort of texture. Now, what I'd like to do here is I'd like to show you a painting that's featured this before. This picture here actually of this autumnal still life. Now lots of you have done this because it was one of the live virtual workshops that we did quite a few weeks ago now in the autumn, and the background was created similar to this, a little bit stronger colours for the background, but cling film went on, and what it does is creates like a wrinkly effect. You can see how it all kind of wrinkles up, and it really gives a nice effect of texture, and it works exceptionally well. Okay, I use it quite a lot on my paintings. That's just a nice effect basically. Again, if you do fancy taking part in a live virtual workshop, all the dates are on Watercolour TV. Head on over to the website www.watercolourtv. Have a look at the top of the screen, you'll see where it says workshops, and you'll see the live workshops. Pretty much every week there's one happening. Well worth checking them out, folks. I encourage anybody to have a go at a virtual watercolour workshop. Beautiful things. This is going to be dried off very soon, folks. I have got a hairdryer standing by, so I'm going to give this a bit of a blast with a dryer, and while that is actually drying off, I want to show you a close-up of the autumnal still life. There you go. And if you're bored with looking at the autumnal still life, over here is a new painting what I've just recently completed of a local scene to me. This is Bolsover Castle in Nottinghamshire and Derbyshire. So if anybody's a member of Watercolour TV, there's a full step-by-step of how to do that as part of your subscription. Now it's worth saying, as you dry a picture off, you can see the cling film there, by the way. Don't be afraid to press it down with your hand as well, once it's kind of dry. That's nice and dry now, folks. The fun of live broadcasting. If only you could edit that bit out, it'd be wonderful. That's nice and dry, and if we look nice and close in, you can see that sort of nice kind of texture that the cling film. It's almost like a marble effect. It's really nice. It's very subtle, but that's exactly what it wants to be. A very gentle and subtle way of creating texture. You can see it there. Look, if we get really close in. So that's the sort of basic sort of background, if you like. Which is perfect, absolutely spot on. And then over the top of this, we'll be adding some sort of cracks in the wall, if you like. Zooming back here so we can see the whole section. There it is. A good starting point. Make sure it's completely dry. Now, we spoke about natural grey as being the colour of shadows. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to use a size 10 brush and take natural grey. You'll notice that it's quite a blue, it's quite a cold grey. It's very much a shadow colour, is natural grey. And it's mixed in the factory from primary colours, so it's mixed from blue, red and yellow. So very important to use the right kind of grey. I mean, this little card, I often show this. This is natural grey and this one is Payne's grey or lamp black. Notice the difference, how natural grey recedes for shadows. This one jumps out. So that's a good advert. So always mix your grey from 3 colours, or use the likes of natural grey, which is the only colour that is a perfect match for the shadows. And basically on the picture, what I want to do is I want to bring in some markings, if you like, not strong with the colour, but I want to start to pick out a few bits, because poppies often grow, don't they, in the front of those beautiful walls. And I'm just going to bring in a few little sort of shadows here to represent some cracks between them. Okay, and I'll clean the brush, wipe it on tissue, and I will soften these away and soften them down. So imagine it's a little bit of a close-up of an old Derbyshire Dales wall. That's what we're going to say. Bring it down here, quite large with these things, you know, and we can take his time with this, and as we start to do a few of them, we'll start to see hopefully how this thing starts to shape up. As long as you use the water and you soften the paint away, this technique will work a treat. You can see already we're starting to create a few of these. Very pale, because I don't want to take away anything, of course, from the actual flowers, so keeping the colours nice and pale. I think it just makes a more... We've all seen watercolours of 3 or 4 poppies against a white background. That's been done. We've all got that t-shirt, you know. We want to do something a bit different here, folks. So doing it against a wall, painting it against a wall would be a nice thing to actually do here. Give it some character. And just keep, every so often, just get a bit of water, look, and just encourage that paint to disappear away. Soften it into your picture. Natural grey is a very soft, very easy colour to blend, even if you mix it yourself from your blue, red and yellow, or you use it ready-made, if you like, from the tube. And the reason we do it ready-made is because it's a very common colour. You know, every picture will have grey in it somewhere. Bring one up there as well. Get that water again and just keep blending away. Size 10 is the brush. Beautiful. Very subtle with a silent B. That's what it wants to be. Bring a little bit of one up, coming up there. Very loose, very free, that one, and that cling film just adds to the effect. So you can see the sort of random sort of stonework, if you like, you know. And of course, when the poppies go over the top of that, it's going to work an absolute treat, isn't it? It really is. So just using a nice bit of water. Keep looking back, make sure you fade those edges away. Let's just get another little impression of a little piece coming down here. Water tissue. Smashing. Okay, I can always go back in and do a bit more work if I need to on those, but I think pretty much hopefully it's got that impression of the actual stone. And I'll leave that and I'll come back to it if I feel the need to, and add extra shadows, give it some extra layers in places. Adding a few little random lines here and there. Very, very pale, folks, very pale, but it's all part of the watercolour. It's all part of the soft faded edge that I'm interested in at this particular stage. I think we need... I was going to do another little piece just coming down here. Almost a little L shape just at the top there. Soften it into the picture. Can't go wrong. Beautiful. Lovely. Okay, that's good. So yeah, so that's a very soft, very pale, very muted colours, very diluted sort of version of the wall there, the out of focus wall. And a very quick blast with the dryer again. Remember, we are working live. This time you can look at a painting again, another watercolour TV tutorial of London, followed by Max at the back. There we go. Let's just bring that back into play. Love those colours. Love the soft sort of colours that you get there. And that skin tone is absolutely beautiful. I love the skin tones. Again, don't forget all the materials are available on Watercolour TV. Lovely. Okay, so that's all nice and dry then. Poppies. We're going to start to work on the poppies now. Let's take a look at the palette because I want to get a couple of different colours here. I shall be using a size 10 brush first, and I will use cadmium red on its own. Works. It's probably the best red to do for poppies. And secondly, we'll have some cadmium red with either alizarin crimson or natural red I'm using, so it makes a darker one. And then an even darker one, which will be from cadmium red and natural grey. So you can add natural grey to any colour and you get instant shadow. So we've got a bright red, a mid red, and then a very dark one. Not too thick with the colours, kind of watch out for actual colours. Okay, so onto the picture. Starting with the red on its own, literally blocking in, filling in and alternating the colours. Now I want to be quite loose with the brush because I don't want to be too precise, and every time I sort of dip into the palette, I'll pick up a different colour. I'll pick up a different sort of tone of red. And that's something that we can do and something that works really quite well. So I'll dip in next time and maybe get the medium red. But very much blocking in at this stage. Work around the base. Now I'm looking forward to getting all the lovely sort of shadows into these, and that's really what makes these things pop, in my opinion, when you bring all that gorgeous shadow work. Because you work towards the centre at the back of your mind, try and think, I'll use that sort of mid colour as we get towards that sort of central piece there. And of course we leave the lighter ring in the middle. Now I'll come back to that in a minute. I'm just going to literally block all three in here, so back to the bright red. So if you do that more on the outside, so you can see that cadmium red is spot on for Poppies. It really is. It's the perfect colour. It's probably the sort of most famous red in watercolour is cadmium red. It is made from cadmium, so it's quite an expensive pigment, but you can get sort of cheaper versions of red. There's a red called Vermilion, which is a nice red, a little bit cheaper than a cadmium red. I put that dark colour in there as well. Look. So very loose blocking in at this particular stage. Try and get the edges a little bit spiky. If you look at the pencil sketch, you can see I've actually sketched in the individual petals of these things, and that's something that's going to feature later when we bring in the shadows. And I'm not even being too precise at sticking to the sketch. It's just loosely in place. Now that's just a very loose block, and what I'll do now is I'll clean my brush really well, give it a bit of a wipe over some tissue, go back to the first one and smooth it out a little bit, smooth out any bits I might have missed, soften the bottom piece a little bit where it meets that central area. And just add a bit of a tidy up any lines you're not happy with. You can go and you can smooth them in a little bit, you can refine, and yeah, works nice. Now let's sort of leave that to dry for a little bit, because I've got some green to go on, and the green's going to come in, and of course it's going to add some of the stems to the flowers. And let's have a quick glance. The palette. Number 6 brush, greens, perfect. So we've got here a mix of these two greens. So it's natural green, which is the darker one, and natural green light. The dark green by itself, and make sure that is quite a strong mix. So it's basically ready-made greens mixed from primary colours. And then we'll also have some of the lighter green, which is a beautiful sort of vibrant almost a lime green by itself for that one, which will be lovely. Let's get close in to that area there. Okie dokie. So, where's your light coming from? Doesn't really matter which side we have light, we can decide later. But I will have a definite darker side and a lighter side to the actual poppies. That's a definite. It is. So let's say the light's coming in from the right. Okay, that's the decision made. And we'll pop in the darker green, which is going to go down one half of the stems. Poppy stems are very fine, aren't they? So that's natural green on its own. We can also do the seed heads, if that's what we call them. The pods. And then also creep down one side of this bud that's ready to burst open. So that is just that darker green, okay? Natural green. Up here as well, of course. Now I shall be adding some detail, some shadows a little bit later. Perfect. Now, in the palette, we've got this lighter green. So it's gone from the darker green, which is called natural green, into this one, which is natural green light. Very much a lime colour, that one. And you can see that I've sketched in each pod and each bud and each stem, and basically on the right side of each one of those, that's where I want to be adding the lighter colour. Okay. It'll really shine. If we get really close in, hopefully you can see it better. There you go. Just using a size 6 brush here. Now I shall be fading all this in. These as well. Notice I'm fetching the colour from one side. Trying to get the colours to blend in on the paper. There we go. And of course we'll be adding detail to all this, so it'll improve with age, like me, apparently. Or Mum might say Rod Stewart. Sean Connery, God rest him. There we go. Now on the tops of the buds, they have this wonderful sort of cap, if you like, and this cap is a slightly different green. So how do you get different greens? Well, if we have a mix of the two and we introduce some turquoise, natural turquoise, or some kind of a viridian or an emerald green colour, it makes a lovely rich green, and that's very similar to the green that we would see on the tops of these caps. So they are quite strange looking things, really. It's the sort of seed pods, aren't they? So I'll bring those in just for the minute. It's a slightly variation in colour. While they're a little bit on the damp side, I want to pick up some green and drop it in as well on the shadow side, which will be nice. And then at the bottom, down here, it's going to get plenty of water and really get these things fading down into that mist, and then just have a little loose faff around, add some random stuff, even get just a slight impression of those sort of famous looking spiky poppy leaves. No sketching here, these are very much just random areas. We can drop some of that turquoise colour in as well if we want to. I'm basically just doing random bits of grasses and things around here. You can see I've kind of got one of the poppy leaves coming in. We'll get another one of those, I think they're quite nice then. Bring them in from there. And play around with your light and dark sides, of course you can. So again folks, if you like this kind of style of painting, if you like the way I work and the way I teach, do have a think about booking one of these virtual workshops. They are very nice. I'm sure people in the live chat will back me up on that one. You've probably taken part, some of you that are watching this video, I imagine. Let us know if you have in the comments. So I'm being quite free as I paint these in, but it just adds a bit of interest to it, in my opinion, and it all helps that nice vignette effect. Put some little random bits and bobs around at the bottom here. If I go lighter again with the colour, that's just me adding water, you could almost get an almost, not visible, but a very translucent leaf around the side here, coming off the edge. Poppy leaves are lovely shapes, aren't they? And of course I'm bringing that a little hint of that turquoise colour in, because you do get a very metallic green, I like to call that green, and it's a nice one. Look what a difference that makes, just bringing that little piece at the bottom. Magic. Now listen folks, if you're new to my YouTube channel, please do hit subscribe, and then after the subscribe button you could click, do me an even bigger favour and hit that notification bell, because there's lots of stuff on my channel to enjoy, and of course there's new stuff happening all the time. I love doing live demos. I'm a big fan of live watercolours, I'm sure some of you know, so please do hit subscribe. It makes a big difference to me, it does. It's a simple thing from your side, but makes a big difference to me, so very, very grateful to anybody that is a subscriber. Also check out my Facebook page, Matthew Palmer Artist, and of course there's a watercolour group. Matthew Palmer's watercolour group is also on Facebook as well. Love that bottom section, it just puts life into it. We're going to let all those greens dry off, we'll come back and put more work on them, but let's come back to the flowers just for a few minutes. Let's come back here and let's start to add some beautiful shadows. Now we've got kind of the colours that we want for the shadows. We can see here in the palette there's all sorts of nice colours. We've got this dark red, which was natural red and cadmium red with grey. It makes this kind of almost a burgundy kind of colour. That'd work nice for some of the shadows. Okay, that'd really work nice for some of the shadows on these actual poppies. So it's the red, it's natural grey. If you've not got the grey, you could pop some blue in it, that would work. We're also going to take the natural red and the cadmium red together again, and let's add a bit more interest to these poppies. And again, we can see the individual petals on the sketch, and that's what I'm working towards with these colours. Those are the colours that's going to be worked into this thing, getting the shadows. First thing I want to do is have a look at each individual one and kind of separate them, I guess you could say, really. So if I was to go darker under here with this dark burgundy colour, bring that colour out, and then we'll do another Let's do another one over here. So you can almost imagine where that one's darker, where it meets. And then here, this one could be darker on this side. And then over here as well. Now what I'll do is I'll clean the brush, give it a few taps on some tissue, and then go in and give it a nice blend, a nice soften. A nice soften always works well. As soon as you blend it away, it turns it from a line into a shadow. And of course it'll naturally lift a little bit of paint off, which is, on a flower, it's a nice thing. Now it's also worth bringing that colour from the centre here. So blending it in and get a few little creases and little wrinkles. Give it some age. There you go, look how nice that is. We shall be going darker, but that just compare the three. You can see what a difference it makes already. Let's carry on. Let's carry on over here. So on this side, we've got a lovely one that really sort of curves around here. Goes right down into this, to that corner. Again, we'll soften these in after we've put them on. That also would come down here. So he's separating each petal. Now, flower painting it's one of the first sort of genres of painting that I did, because I started painting at a very young age, and flowers were of course always around. My mother was a very keen, still is a very keen gardener, so painting flowers was a natural, easy thing to do for me. So all lots of the techniques what I apply to my paintings, my landscapes and my animal paintings, came from flowers. Again, pop a few little lines and little creases around. This is all, it's all shadow work. Often something that people forget is the shadows, but of course they are very, very important things to add. This is giving the clarity, the sharpness, the sort of folds, the creases, all that beautiful stuff. I'm going to mix up some more colour here. Nice. So this one here then, again, similar idea. Each one's a bit different though, so take your time on each one. Around that centre. Bit of water. Beautiful. And then on this one we've got this wonderful, almost a fold on this one, like it's really sort of curled up. So we'll get that nice shadow, and we'll put some shadow down here as well. And then we'll soften that in to the picture. And then on this side we've also got a similar thing happening just there. Again, very much separating each petal with this colour. A few little creases and wrinkles from the edge. It's quite effective. Now we'll give that a few moments to dry, folks, and what we'll do, but we can see the shape forming there. We're going to come down and have a look at the green now. Work in a few more areas of green. Okay, so back to the palette. Natural green on its own is a good kind of shadow colour. Also, for the first time, grey on its own, or strong grey by itself, because I want to just bring in a little bit more work on the stems And in this bottom section here, get a bit more life coming to them. So I mean, it's all very random down here, all very incidental, but it's important. You can be quite creative with how you do this section. You can actually work in dark on a leaf that's running parallel to a stem. So if I was to darken that part of that leaf just here, although these are very loose painted, you can see how it makes those pop out like a negative painting style. Down here as well, little flicks. Put some little lines on these as well. They're quite hairy, aren't they? Let's get some of that grey underneath the poppy as well. Let's just bring the camera up a little bit so you can see this, but I'm just basically adding shadow on the underneath of those. And that's just grey. That'll help it to fall back, smooth it in. Same here as well, put some shadows on. On those seed heads. Nice. And then while I've got grey, just in a few areas on those actual poppies themselves, you can afford to be just a little bit darker, just a touch, and you've got to be so careful not to overdo this, but just little bits of extra grey in a few areas, right in the corners, is the best place to bring these. Imagine those real tight folds and creases, like that one there, that nice curl to that petal. That's where you're going to see these lovely dark shadows coming in. Again, it's something that people often leave out of painting, shadows. They kind of, especially people that are new to painting, you know, shadows get a little bit, sometimes a bit lost, don't they, you know? And of course a painting can look flat without shadows. It depends what sort of style of painting you're doing. Of course everyone's got their own little style, of course, but for me, shadows are such an important part of it, and natural grey is the ideal colour. I think I might have mentioned that a couple of times, maybe. Let's just work in here. Make sure this is really dark in some of these corners. Increases the depth, it does. So if you're mixing this yourself, it's basically, it's the primary colours together, so blue, a little bit of red and a little bit of yellow, so basically primary colours, and it works an absolute treat, it does. Let's put a bit more red on some of these corners here as well. I'm just basically just picking colours. It's all creating texture. The brush is dancing around the paper and it's giving texture, it's giving detail, it's giving shape and form. Highlights are still to come yet, which are always one of my favourite things. I work a little bit different to maybe some people, as in I like to put the highlights in at a later stage. We've got a special tool for that. We mentioned those lift out brushes. Well, that's the perfect tool for that particular effect. We can see I've got the spiky brush there. I've picked up some of the red, the bright red spiky brush, and I'm going to bring in some texture to the poppies at this point. I want to show you this texture. It can be hard to see, but if you look close at that flower there, spike the brush, you can really get in there and utilize the watercolor paper, the textured paper. This one is a knot surface, NOT, which basically means it ain't rough and it ain't smooth. Or its official title is, it's not hot pressed and it's not cold pressed, so they call it knot, and that's where the name comes from. If you was curious. just so nice to give texture. I love it. Beautiful, 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 beautiful. Highlights still to come. Let's drop down here to the bottom again. I'm quite liking this random spontaneous base that went in. I really like that, and for me it's one of those areas that was never, it wasn't planned, it just sort of happened, which is what a lot of my painting is. Random stuff. And you never know how a painting is going to progress until you finish it. I do quite a lot of live TV. If you've ever seen the likes of Hochanda and things like that, I do a lot of live TV shows on there, and it's so nice to do the, half of the time I don't know what I'm doing until I do it, and that is basically the thrill of live TV. Here we've got a branching detail brush. This is the small one. It's basically a rigger brush that's surrounded by this outer area, and it's lovely for doing lots of fine work. And on this picture at the bottom here, I feel like I want to get some nice grasses coming up. So I've just picked up the darker of the greens. See them? Almost little branches, almost little branches here, folks. I want to turn this on its side for the minute. Tricky bit. Get the camera back for you. There you go. Poppies on the side. Let's bring some more. I love to see this sort of thing. You can really get these working the way through. Even pop some little sort of spots on the tops of them. We don't know what they are. There might be a bit of ryegrass or something like that. Doesn't matter. Really doesn't matter. As long as you get the focal point relatively correct, the rest of it is incidental. But it just helps to give a nice bit of random detail. Turn it back the right way. Smashing, just destroying the set at that point. Down here, I need to love live TV. Let's get some detail in this area. What we're going to do is we're going to bring in some more detail work with that same colour. Put the little spots on these, little tiny hairs on them as well. I mean, that's getting very precise, but it's there, same as this. Poppy stems are quite hairy, so a few dots, a few spots and dots on them would actually give a nice bit of interest. If you want to go down that level of detail, it depends on your style of painting, after all. Get a few more grasses just coming up there. There we go. And then we've got the seed, the bud here as well, which I want to put a bit of extra work into. Again, a very hairy thing. There's always like a little bit of a slight opening on those. If I pick up the number 6 brush, nice and damp, and then just smooth in any areas on those, refine them a little bit. Feel like it could be a little bit darker down that edge. A few more little bits down here as well. It's just that dark green, just the dark green. That's all it is. Few spots and dots around. put some little random spots on the tops of some of these grasses. Over this side as well. Starts to make it look nice and busy, don't it? And just look how that background, it's just there, isn't it, you know? Just how we wanted it to be. I'm going to pick up some of the green here, and I want to do a bit of splattering as well, working around that bottom. A few bits up the top, but not really too much at the top, around the sides. Again, it all adds to that overall effect. Getting a few darker bits in the bottom there, making this thing look really quite dark, and for that I'm just using a bit of grey for that. Smashing. It's quite addictive when you start to pull in shadows and various things. Now, I've not quite finished the flowers yet. We're going to come back to those fairly soon and do a little bit more work on them. Ace, love that. Really starts to make the scene look just more sort of rural, more natural, more rustic. That's it, rustic, more rustic. Now, in that background wall, I'm just going to get a little bit of a slightly heavier grey, natural grey. I'll pop it there so you can see. Still quite pale. I just want to bring in a few slightly darker lines in a couple of areas, almost in the form of little L shapes, and then using water to smooth them in. I guess it's on the corners where you can imagine two stones meeting, so just very simple little extra bits of shadow just in a few areas. And all the time, get your water on your brush. A couple of taps on tissue is normally about right. Remove just the right amount of excess from the brush. Very pale colours here. But giving it a second coat, for me it just makes the wall look a little bit more obvious, but still keeping the colours very pale. Gives a bit of character. Nice. Cool. Okay. Just feel like I want to get a bit of dark in this leaf. And that one on the edge there. Smashing. Okay, let's have a look at the flowers now. Hopefully it's looking good. Enjoying this one, folks. Love the background. Nice and close in here to the flowers. Of course, this is all live, so hopefully you're enjoying it. Is it like watching paint dry? Is it enjoyable? If you're enjoying it, folks, please do have a little think about checking out, as we mentioned a couple of times, those live virtual workshops. Always nice. Isn't it amazing how you start off with a sketch like this and then just start to turn it into something. Now at this next stage in the picture, I am going to bring in some highlights. We're going to remove colour. And then we'll go for some lovely, beautiful detail, which is always one of those things that for me just adds that nice little bit of extra oomph to a picture. So what we're going to do here is we're going to use a piece of kitchen paper, and we are going to bring in these lift out brushes. Now these have been around quite a few years now. Matthew Palmer lift out brushes. There's actually 3 different ones. What I've got here is the large and the extra large one. It's a very stiff bristle, the tapered edge. You look at it from the side, it looks like a round brush actually, and it's designed for basically taking colour out, and these are very addictive things to do. So if we get into the flowers, there we go, we're going to pop highlights in. So water, gentle pinch through your fingers, but you need water. You need water. Okay, and we're going to work down from this edge towards the centre. This is going to put the creases. Can you see those highlights? Let's do one at a time. Fairly close in. And then even where one petal meets another, start to bring in some highlights. This one here, because you can use any brush, but a lift out brush is designed for the job, because it was always a struggle to find a brush that did it well. So I thought, you know what, let's just design one, and here it is. But it really allows us to get beautiful shape into these things. Press it nice and firm. Look how much of a difference that makes. It creates the folds, and it's absolutely bloody addictive. It is, every time. And of course, you can use it in more than that area. You could bring it into these. Bring it into these areas. You could lighten some of the stems if you didn't quite get that highlight on one side. So there's lots of places that you could obviously use this, but as a starting point, it just makes perfect sense to do it in the it's taking red paint off, which if you think about it, red paint's very much it's a hard colour to remove, is red, and this is taking it off without too much effort, so works well. On this one, we've got that nice fold, so we'll highlight the fold. Just a good firm tap, and it's lighting that ridge, creating more of a definite curl. Again from the edge. There is a really small version of this as well, 3mm. This one's 6mm, 1/4 inch. Ace, love that. And then let's have a look at this one up here as well. Similar thing for this one. I've got this edge here that I want to really wash out. I'll make that edge nice and light, and sometimes you have to go in it a couple of times to get the colour. It depends what the colour is, but it will take some gorgeous light out of your picture. It's a technique I've been teaching for years, but you know, I spent a big chunk of my life travelling the UK visiting art societies and art groups doing demos. Of course, all that's on hold at the minute, but whenever I demo lift out as a technique, even some of the old school guys that have been painting, you know, for 50 years or so, it's not a technique that they've seen much. It's like, oh yeah, that works, you know. And I do it so much in my pictures because it really does add spit and polish to them. Makes them look nice and curvy and gives beautiful texture and shape. Look how nice they're looking, folks. Loving them. I'm going to pick up the extra large one, same brush, just the bigger version. And again, just want to make sure that we've got some nice highlights in those stems. This one here is interesting because you've got the fold in it. You can tell this is live, can't you, because the camera work. And even where you've got a stem that runs down here, I'll wash out some lighter just turning this on the side just for a split second there, folks. Just going to get the camera back to the base, bear with me. Apologies for the dodgy camera work, because I want to lighten a few grasses coming over those dark areas. So it takes a little bit, it's only a small bit, but it's enough to break it up. There you go. Makes it a lot more interesting, don't it? Turn it about the right way. That works. That works really well down there. So just a few more sort of highlights in this then, before I put some of that super detail in that we keep talking about. So I'm adding just a few more highlights. Of course, it will leave a residue of colour behind, which is a nice thing, because you don't want to go completely down to the white, especially with red. You know, it'll be quite striking if you went all the way down to the right, and it would look a little bit off, I think. I've just picked up some grey, quite strong actually, just to get a couple of final strong shadows in. Creating that nice separation. Because the darker it is in those areas, the more it'll recede. Makes a difference. This is the sort of crimsony red that we had. It was the natural red with the cad red together. Just a bit of dry brush on the tissue there. Just want to get a few little bits and bobs of final little bits of detail coming from those edges. There we go. There's just a few little sort of ruffles on the edges. It's quite nice. Just to help to give a bit of extra clarity. And of course in the centre of Poppies you've got these sort of light spots. Now they're a bit of a sandy colour. Now if you remember the background we used natural yellow, which was this kind of sandstone colour, very pale. Now I'll take that colour and I'll pop it in the middle on all three. Just to take the white away, and then while it's a bit damp I'm going to take a very strong grey. I mean literally the grey here is almost pure paint. Very thick. Wipe it over the tissue. And while those areas are a little bit on the damp side, I'm going to take that brush and we're going to flick them in. So you get that bit of grey to them. And then just slightly brush it into the flower. Same here, look. Very dry brush. Up here as well, of course. And then there's one really striking feature that I always think really suits the Poppies, and it's those black sort of dots, the black sort of seeds in the middle, if that's what they are. You can tell me the technical name for them. So it's strong grey, and you sort of stipple your brush. Can you see how the brush has gone a little bit sort of spiky there? So a lovely effect, and what it'll do is it'll allow me, we'll come to that first one and do this. Get nice and close in here. Look at that lovely texture we've created. And we're actually going to stipple. You can see the brush is a little bit on the spiky side. So we're going to stipple around. Don't be afraid to use dark colour over the top of those. Now that is like putting the eyes on an animal portrait, in my opinion. That really does make a blooming big difference, doesn't it, eh? Are you with me on this? What do you think? Makes them pop, don't it, that? Absolutely gorgeous. That is what turns them into Poppies, I think. And I've always said this. I've taught poppy flower painting for years, you know, and it's always those little black dots, there's little grey, strong grey dots in the middles that just add that little bit of, you know, something. You've painted a bloody good poppy there, Mr. Palmer. Well done. Let's put a few little extra lines and things around here on this edge. Make sure we've got plenty of texture coming in to these areas. Give it some extra character. Any flat areas, bring in a few lines. And it's those little bits, like I said, that I think really do add the biggest sort of difference to it, in my opinion, because they really do just enhance the entire thing, don't they? So let's take a look at this then, so we can see the beautiful detail there, folks, in the Poppies. Look at that gorgeous highlight on there, down to the bottom. Beautiful. And of course, these kind of vignettes really do look nice with a signature, don't they, as well? So I'm just going to sign the picture. I'm going to sign it over here. And what I'd like to do, folks, is I'm going to take off the masking tape here as well, because I think it's nice to see it against a clean background. I want to frame this one up. I think it'd be nice to see it because it's come out really well. I'm really pleased how it's come out. So what I want to do, if you bear with me, folks, remember, like I keep saying, this is live and unedited. I like that. I want to pop some little bits of masking tape around here just to so we can see this thing against a frame. I think it should just drop the thing on the floor. Put that there. Bear with me. It's all planned. Got a nice bevel mount here, which I'm hopeful will fit. Yes, it will. Beautiful. There you go. Pop that on just there. Press it down. There we go. Poppies in watercolour, folks. It's always nice to see the magic mounts, as we like to call them. What a pleasure that was to do, and on such a relevant day as well, you know. Let's take a look at this thing nice and close up, folks, shall we? We'll start from the base of the picture. And look at that amount of detail we've captured in that short space of time. I love the out of focus wall. I think it looks really well. Now, if you could, before people start to disappear, folks, I'm going to have a little chat with you, if that's okay. Just stick around for a couple of seconds for me. So if you enjoyed that demo, folks, just let me try and sort out my screen. It's flickering. Bear with me. A flickering screen. You know what? We're going to do that, and we're going to do that. Let's move the camera here, shall we? There we are. That's better. I'm not flickering anymore. So thanks for watching, folks. Been one of my favourite projects to do that live on this YouTube channel. Please do hit the subscribe button on the channel. That means a lot. And also give us a thumbs up if you liked it, folks, as well. Hit the notification bell once you've subscribed. And a few things that you might possibly be interested in. For example, the live virtual watercolour workshops. Check them out on Watercolour TV. Click the workshop tab at the top and you'll see them. They're pretty much on every weekend. Here's an example of one that we've recently done. Northern Lights. All painted just using 3 colours and 3 brushes. So a really nice thing to do, you know, and something that's very enjoyable. The autumn still life as well. They're only £10. And of course, anybody from around the world can take part in them. And if you can't watch them live, doesn't matter, because you can watch them at a later stage. Okay, so head over to Watercolour TV, go to the top of the screen where it says workshops, and you'll see when the next one actually is. So I'll look forward to seeing some of you on the next live virtual workshop. Thanks for watching, folks. Please follow me on YouTube. Check out Watercolour TV as well for loads of video on demand tuition as well, and loads of stuff happening in the world as far as painting And of course, painting is total escapism. When your brush is touching that paper, everything else that's happening outside of that door is completely gone. Your mind focuses on this. It's great for the soul. It's great for the mind. It really is. See you very soon, folks. Please check out the workshops and like and subscribe to the YouTube channel.